Hey guys, this is Grace and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to share what is left over with my latest homemade kit plus a layout share showcasing all of the layouts that I created with this particular kit. So if you have not checked out the items that I put together for this particular kit, make sure that you check the description box below because it will have the direct link for that video. I always put all of my homemade kits in this iris container, and I think you could still buy the containers at Michael's, but the inserts, I've heard that you cannot buy them there anymore, but I've heard that Amazon sells them. So I just like the insert because it could hold all of my embellishments and whatnot. So let me start off by sharing what is left over with my kit, and then we'll go to the layout share. So in this particular container or bin, I have some layouts and journaling that I was not able to document with this particular kit. I think I was able to create 11 pages. I say I think because it's been a while since I've opened up this kit. For some reason, I get so gung-ho in the beginning of the month, and I usually do these kits every other month, so I work with it for 2 long months, and I think that is another problem that I have. It's just that I have this kit for way longer than that I'm inspired with it. Does that make sense? But anyway, so I create a lot of layouts in the month of May, but then it just kind of slows down by the beginning of June, and I really don't pick it up until like I realize that, oh, it's almost time to make another kit. So anyways, that's just my little rambling. What's left over? So I have a few more of those 4x6, 3x4 papers, just a few more. I can't even grab it. And then just a bunch of scraps that's left over from papers and other 3x4 or 4x6 pads. And then I have leftover of this. This used to be a 4x6 and then a sticker sheet. The other one I've actually kind of transferred some of the leftover on that on another sticker sheet, but I've used up one of them, and this is what's left over of the long sticker sheet that I have. I still have a few 4x6, and then I still have a bunch of these journaling blocks from Pebbles that I just never used. So that's just going to go back in my stash. And then I did use up a lot of these brads, and that makes me really happy. So this was full when I started the kit, and now as you can see, it's about a third down, and a lot of the brads in here were those small tiny ones, so I was able to use up a lot of those. I think I used 3 of the flares, and I was just left with the Father's Day themed ones. I didn't really have pictures of Father's Day, and so I didn't get to use that up. I have 2 wood pieces that are left, and then basically just the negatives of these chipboard pieces. I used a bunch of them in different layouts. For the die cuts, or for the cut files, I have, now this one was a leftover from a leaf die that I was using for one of the particular pages, but this wasn't part of my original kit. So I have the smile and just a few more, hello, the story, but I did use some of the cut files that I pulled for this particular kit. Now these are border die cuts from GCD Studios, and I used most of them. Of course, the ones that I ended up not really picking up was the ornate ones, the thick ones, so that's just gonna go in my stash. I'd probably, you know what, maybe I wouldn't put it back in my stash. I'd probably put this in a little container for like giveaways, or like to give to my kids to play with. So for papers, these are what's left over my papers, and this is what really truly makes me happy at the end of making or putting together a kit, or at the end of when the kit is done, is that I have like 12 sheets when I start, but then I'm left over with these papers, with these scraps, and that makes me really happy because then I know that I'm using my supplies. This is the leftover of one of the Bella Boulevard 12 by 12 sheets. I just put what's left over of the black letters, and then those little word stickers that was left over from one of the small word stickers from Bella Boulevard. But this is what's left, and I don't know what I'm going to do with them. The chipboard, I didn't really use much of the chipboard. I think it's because when I'm making a title, it's not your like average title, and so when I'm looking at the letters, almost all of my chipboards, especially if I'm using one that's been used up, that I'm running into the problem of not having the right letters for my titles. So I think that's one of the reasons why I still have a few more here. And as you can see, the letters that's left over, really, I mean, I don't even have any more vowels in here, and so it's hard for me to make a word for that. Okay, and a few more like bigger scraps of paper. That's just gonna go in my stash. I was even thinking of maybe making cards with the leftovers, but really I was just kind of done with this kit. And then this is like the 12 by 12 sheet, kind of like that black that I showed you. And then this one has just a few more leftovers of the letters. And then here's the stencil. I only use this once because I guess I'm not really into the stencil, and that actually makes me realize that I don't really have a use for this stencil. I don't know if you can see that because it doesn't have the backing on there. But so I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this in a pile to give away or to sell or whatever, because yeah, I just didn't use it. It was not my style, I guess. So that's gonna go. Okay, so now I'm gonna share with you the layouts that I created, and these layouts are gonna go from the one that I have created the last up to the first one that I created. It's just because that's how I stack them. So the very first one was the very last layout that I created, and this is the only one that has a process video out of all of the layouts that I created, and you can check that process video in my channel or in the description box below. So I was just using a bunch of scraps here. If you watched that video, you know that this yellow paper was actually not a whole 12 by 12, but I just cut it up and kind of pieced it together. And then I have a bunch of the 3 by 4s, 3 by 3, and just a cut apart of different kind of scraps. This is from the sticker sheet. And then this is the title, and then I'm going to put the date on here. And then when I was finished doing the video, I remembered that I still had those chipboard, and so I just colored them in with my Spectrum Noir and just added that there to kind of give it a little bit more embellishment. And so that's my layout. And this one was another layout that I created. I'm not sure if this was created for challenge. I don't think it was. My favorite go-to when I don't have a lot of papers left is to kind of do a grid. So what I did was I put my pictures in first and kind of see where I can mix some papers and my journaling. And so that's what I did. I cut up a strip of pattern paper and then put blocks of leftover paper here. I did add some design, and then this is the title, and then this is where I went kind of a little crazy with the brads. I just put them on top just because I can, and I wanted to use up my stash, so that's what I did. Okay, the next one is I think this one's for a challenge. I can't quite remember because it's been a while. So as you can see, I had three 3 by 4 pictures, and then going back to the grid design, I did the 4th grid block with my title, and then I used a wood piece for part of my title, and then I tucked 2 3 by 4 papers or cards there to frame it. And then I also added some more blocks of paper here, tuck it in here and there, and then my title and some stickers, and then I did just a splatter of mess over there. I'm not very good at splattering mist, but it is what it is. So that's a page for you. Okay, so for this layout, this is where I used the stencil. Basically, I just used a modeling paste and just ran the stencil, used the stencil to create the elements that I have. I did do it on the pattern paper, and I also used it on this piece of cardstock, green cardstock that was left over from another piece. And then just basically did a bunch of layering. I'm not very good at layering, and that's not really my style, but because I did have a lot of scraps, that's what I did here. And I do have two photos, and then this one was cut out with a die that that I've had. I didn't use that. I didn't put that with my initial kit, but I thought that the shape of it was really cool to create titles. By the way, this paper is a 3x4 card that just had the Great Smile. So instead of having the block 3x4, I used this die to create a fancier title block. So that's something that you can do as well if you have a lot of 3x4 cards and then you wanted to kind of just mix it all up. I did use two of the flares over here and then a bunch of some stickers. This date block over here, this is actually from the Pebbles red journaling paper. Oh, where is it? This one, and I just cut out the date and then rounded the corners. So that's my next layout. And then here's another one. So as you can see, I used the pattern paper. I did back it up with some white because that's just my kind of my go-to design. I can't just leave a paper, a pattern paper all the way through the edge. I wanted a little bit of a border, and then I played around with a circle that's already existing in the pattern paper and kind of just used that as my kind of sub framing around my photos. Of course, my photos would go over the circle, outside of the circle, but that's fine with me. I did use some of the die cuts and then made my title here. Used some strips of paper and the one of the borders for that as well, and then again a bunch of brads all over the place. Now one thing I would not like to note is that I was using a certain strong adhesive, and it was later on that I realized that it would be nice to sew on this, but it kept, because of the adhesive, it kept on making a mess of my paper, and it just kept on skipping, and so I was getting really frustrated with it. So finally I'm like, I gave up, and so this part does not have any stitching on it, and I still have yet to like check on my sewing machine if I could, if I totally ruined it or not. But yeah, so that's kind of like my mistake there, and I'm making sure that from here on out, even if I'm not sure if I'm going to sew or not, I'm going to make sure that I put the adhesive where I am not going to be planning on sewing through there. Okay, so here's another layout. Now this one I know is from, I created this with a challenge in mind. I think Scrapbook Generation they had a crop in May, I think, for National Scrapbooking Day, and that's some of the concept of this layout was because of that challenge. So anyways, I used some strips of paper. I did use my border punch just to give this one an edge, and then this one is a border, a die cut border from the GCD Studio Pack, and I just grabbed some scraps of ribbon and just threaded it through to give it a little bit more design. I did use one of the chipboard house over here. I sprayed misted that, and then a bunch of brads here and there. The same goes with these chipboards. I spray misted that as well. And then here is a layout that I created for, I believe this is a scrap room, and for the Freaky Fast Friday challenge. Can't talk. Anyways, I used pre-cut pieces of paper and just made my layout with it. I love that Freaky Fast Friday challenge, by the way, because I could kind of think outside the box by using certain parameters of paper. Like I can't even, add anything to it. I just have to use the papers, the pre-cut papers that I have cut, or that's part of the challenge, and I like that because it makes me think outside the box. With this one, I used the Love Wood block, but I inked it up to give it a little bit more color, and then I also added some Nuvo drops on the edges of that. Okay, so on to another layout. Now this one is one of the layouts that one of the first few layouts that I did, so I was able to use up like a whole 12 by 12 piece and then a bunch of bigger scraps or bigger pieces of paper because I did have a lot more to work with at that time. Now I wanted my title to stand out a little bit, so I added a vellum to that. This heart, so I treat the way I treated this was anyways, the way I did this heart was I heat embossed it with some red. So I smushed the chipboard onto some embossing or some Versamark and then poured red embossing powder on it and then heat setted it. So that's how I did that. And then this is a pretty heavy page. I think it's because of all the layers. Now this particular part is a 3x4 card, but it had a So Happy on the bottom, and if I would have laid my photo on top of that, it would have covered part of the word. So I used my X-Acto knife and cut out that piece that said So Happy and then tucked my photo underneath it so that you can still see the photo and the words, and so that's how I maximized that 4x6 piece. With this one, I used a bunch. I had when I made this, I just bought myself a leaf die from, I believe that was from Ranger, I think, and so it had a bunch of different kinds of leaves, and I just used some scraps of paper and just cut a bunch of leaves just to kind of test it out. And then there was a challenge going on for National Scrapbooking Day at scrapbook.com, where you use die cuts, and I was like, hey, I have all these die cuts, might as well make something out of it. So I made a wreath around it, and then I used everything else was from my homemade kit, and then I used them to finish off my layout. I did use a bunch of those little stickers and then sprinkled some of the brads all around it. So I was really happy with this page, by the way. Okay, so I was able to make two double page layouts with this kit, and so the first one is this one, and it's actually no, this was not the first one. This was the first one. Okay, so these are images or photos from excuse me. Okay, so these are the photos from, what is that? Oh. Photos from the OC Fair when we went there last summer. We were in California and we figured we'd go. And so there was a bunch of pictures, and because there was a bunch, I was actually able to make two double page layouts for this particular event. So this was the first one, and I put all of the pictures first and figured out where I could insert some pattern paper. So with this one, I used the border, and then I cut the same exact paper but made it smaller to occupy the space. And I had, of course, big journaling block for that, and then I used a bunch of the stickers. I spray misted the chipboard shapes and added that there. Added one over here. And then added another one over here. The chickie I thought was good because we did see some animals there, so that was cute. I did use the ticket stubs from Maya Road in this layout as well. And then the extra photos, I made another layout with them, and this was the result of it. And so I kind of liked how it all goes. This is, of course, a little bit more sparse than the other one, just because I'm just working with the excess photos, but I still love them. And I decided that I was not going to do any journaling here because these are extras, and I've already talked about these particular photos in the other layout, but because there were some specific photos that I still wanted to show, especially like we went to that one was it like a venue or like one of the big open space, enclosed space that they had there. I'm just not sure what the word I'm thinking of. But anyways, they had a bunch of crafts there, and because I am a crafter, I love looking at them, and I photographed a bunch of different cute ones, and so I wanted to make sure that I do that, and so I used the negative space of the positives that I used on the other one to kind of blend them all together. And so that's what that layout is. Okay, so the rest is just packaging, and so some of that I'm gonna of course throw away because I don't have any more left, or I'm just gonna use the same packaging to put my items together. So that is my layout share and what's left over my kit. I hope that this has inspired you to create your own kit and to make your pages with those predetermined products. I have to say I've been doing this for a while now. I think I've been doing this for at least 3 years, if not 4, and I've enjoyed it. And it's not like I feel like I'm running out of products because I still have a bunch of items to use, and I think that's one of the reasons why I like making homemade kits is it actually helps me to not get bored of my products that I have in my stash because I'm using different combinations of them at different times, and so I'm not using the same washi or same sticker for like a whole year or whatever. So that kind of helps me to find my love again with the products that I have. If you have any questions, make sure that you leave it in the comment section below. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next go around. Bye.